Good morning, everyone. It's Andrew Ross from Chat Media, publishers of Jobber Nation and Indie Garage, and creators and operators of the Great Canadian Aftermarket Trade Show virtual event. This morning, we're looking at the J.D. Power Customer Service Index ratings for Canada. The results just came out. I'm here with J.D. Nye, who, for all intents and purposes, is the face of J.D. Power for the automotive business in Canada. Good morning, J.D.
Morning.
Now, I'll just kind of jump into a little bit of housekeeping here for folks. We do have a few ways that, while some more members of our attendees do join us, we do have a number of ways for you to provide questions and feedback. You can certainly ask questions through the Q&A. I'll try and monitor as those come through. There's a chat function likely across the bottom of your screen as well. In addition to that, there should be a way for you to put your hand up, and then I can, if you feel not comfortable with asking a question in text, then you can do that. Now, I'm not seeing the putting your hand up function right now on it, but so maybe that's not been activated this time around, but please feel free to ask questions as we go along here, and I'll do my best to monitor that and interject as we talk. Now, JD, the customer service index has been kind of a key focal point for the service business in Canada, how different channels are doing, how they're doing compared to each other, and how they're doing themselves. Now, this last series of results, the surveys, over 7,000 surveys, I believe the results are based on, 7,000 survey occasions across Canada, came during a pretty unusual period for the economy, for the service business in Canada. So maybe you could talk a little bit about where the data comes from that we see, and you know, what we're seeing in this that might be a little bit different from under kind of a more normal times. And I'll pull up the graphic while we're doing that. So
Yeah, no problem. I mean, different times for everything, right? Normally, I'm sure we would be doing this in person if times were different. So yeah, certainly a kind of a different year for service providers and for dealerships. Now, the study that we're talking about today is an assessment of owner behavior and service satisfaction among owners of 4 to 12-year-old vehicles. So they kind of everything from the early out of warranty period right through to kind of end of the road for most cars these days at about 12 years. Yeah, so like you said, almost 8,000 responses, but the service occasions that are being evaluated can happen anytime within kind of the last 12 months. And so in the study this year, we've got a real mix of, you know, service occasion that happened in the before times, and service occasions that you know took place really kind of mid height of the pandemic. The split is approximately 70-30. So about 70% of the service occasions that we evaluated this year took place prior to, say, the beginning of March 2020, with about 30% that took place between March and June of 2020.
Okay. Yeah, so that kind of speaks to that. Now, this is the very kind of simplified graphic looking at the overall indexes here now, and the information that was kind of distributed when the results were released, it was clear that kind of everybody's game had been improved across the board, both at the dealership channel and the aftermarket channel. So what's your kind of analysis of what went into making that happen?
Yeah, it's by and large, the overall industry average, like you said, was up year over year. It's a trend we've been watching for a few years. The overall service satisfaction has been improving fairly steadily, I'd say, over the last 6 or 7 years. It was quite flat before that, but has been kind of picking up. And I think a lot of that, at least I know on the dealership side of the house, and we'll talk probably a little bit more about this in a few minutes when we start to talk about market share shifts. between aftermarket and dealership, because there's a major story there for the Canadian aftermarket. But over the last few years, I think with margin compression on the new car sales side of the house, dealerships and frankly their OEs, their head offices have been spending a lot more time and a lot more attention on the service side of the business, because it really is a profit driver today, much more so than it used to be. So that then kind of necessarily demands attention be paid to the customer experience. That's kind of the biggest lever that most of these organizations have to pull in order to drive service retention and long-term service loyalty. And then the same is true in response then on the aftermarket side of the house as well. When that livelihood is threatened, then everyone has to up their game.
Right, right. It sounds like whether it's the chicken or the egg coming first, both channels over the kind of umbrella of it have actually upped their game, which is good news for for the Canadian consumer, right? So they get a better experience, and for the overall industry and service, if people have a better service experience, it means they're going to bring their vehicles in a little bit more, which kind of starts to speak to why it matters, right? So it's nice to have a really great high rating. I'm sure the folks who are at the top of this list are pretty happy. I know that I saw some notes from some other folks just out there kind of crowing about how they increased their relative ranking to versus where they had been before. So they were happy about that too. But why, beyond bragging rights, does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something we work with our clients all the time on. And yeah, to your point, it's nice to be at the top of a rank chart. But really what the index means and the correlation that we draw every year for our clients is the higher your index score, the more likely it is a customer is going to say, yes, I'm definitely coming back to that channel, either aftermarket or dealership, that the next time I'm bringing my car in for service. And that relationship is really consistent. It's been strong for years. And that's really the kind of the reason to drive for the top spot. Again, it's not now it's sort of against the rules for someone from JD Power to say the rank doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, it's really about what it drives in terms of business outcomes.
Right, right. Now, is there a level? Is there a kind of a number in there? Oh, if I'm getting it's all out of 1,000. So if I'm getting, in the 800s or the 900s, that sounds pretty good. But is there a sort of a threshold where below which my loyalty and return customer really drops off?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not sure we could put kind of a hard number on that, but really, kind of anything at the industry average these days is pretty good. But if you were to take a look at that rank chart, the one thing that we notice increasingly is the compression of that rank chart. You not that long ago you would have brands at the top performed like way better than brands at the bottom, and it's still almost 100-point gap, but that's a lot more compressed than it used to be.
Right.
And so it's kind of a way of saying that everybody today is operating at kind of like a B plus to like a low A minus grade, but there is room at the high end to really separate oneself from the pack with really kind of dedicated focus on this. And the other conversation we have all the time with our clients is that at the end of the day, if you were to take a look at our quality rankings, vehicle quality today in terms of like our measure is problems per 100 for that, but nobody builds a bad car anymore, and so vehicle quality is not really as big a differentiator in the marketplace as it used to be. If you were a salesperson on the floor of one of the highest quality brands not that long ago, you could say you can't go across the street and buy that guy's car because the quality isn't there, and that sales avenue isn't quite as reliable anymore as it used to be. And so the customer experience today represents a real opportunity to separate from other brands.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and hence the attention that so many of the channels are actually focusing on that. They understand that, and they understand, I guess this is, what leads into this, that there is a financial business benefit to that, whether or not it's a, 5 points equals $1. I don't know about that, but it's certainly, there's a correlation there. I mean, you should do it, these things in your business to improve your customer experience, not just to get up top of the rank. It's because it's going to benefit your business as well as obviously benefiting your customers. They have a better experience, they come back, and it improves the viability of the business. So what that kind of leads to is, to me, one of the things that I really noticed in the average repair orders of the branded aftermarket, which is what's in the chart, and the dealers, was that both of them improved their average repair order, but the gap increased between the dealers and the branded aftermarket results as well.
Yep.
Maybe address a little bit of that, and is that an ongoing trend? Is that something new? How concerned should the aftermarket be?
Yeah, maybe just a couple quick things. We do gather data on independent shops in the study, so that exists within the data set, and it's part of the industry average number that you see. It's not on that rank chart because obviously, sort of by their nature, we can't rank independent shops.
Right.
There's nowhere we can't have. I think we ended up gathering, almost 800 responses, I think, from customers that took their vehicle to an independent repair facility.
Branded Joe's Garage or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. And I should point out, if they did appear on the rank chart as kind of one unit, marked, say, independence, the score would have put them in third, I think. So customers that go to those facilities have a highly satisfying experience. They do really well.
Right.
Now, in terms of the repair order conversation, I think that's something we've been tracking for a few years now, where in this vehicle age group, again, 4 to 12-year-old vehicles, the average customer used to bring their vehicle in 3 times a year. And that's down now to a little under 2.5 times a year, I think. So obviously, you can't bring your car in for service half a time, but it just means that more people are bringing their vehicle in twice as opposed to 3 times than used to be the case. And so when you bring your vehicle in less, you're just bundling more services into one of those occasions. So it's basically saying that the customers don't just want to bring their car in for an oil change anymore, only to bring it in 4 months later for the tire change. So holding off on some services so I can then bundle it with whenever I'm flipping my winter tires.
Right. Now, that gap is widening too. I mean, that's the one that kind of concerns me a little bit, as
Mm-hmm.
that trend outward further and further. If that gap, and I just look at it from the standpoint of 3,200 or so dealers, 60% of the market versus 12, 14,000 independents sharing the other 40% amongst themselves. And that 20, 30, that $20 gaps become, I think it's about $50 now, or $40 in average repair order. I mean, it's more than 10%, I think, if memory.
Yeah.
It's we would like to see the trend closing that gap, just for the financial viability of the independent operations, but there's some things that go into that, right? So,
yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest shift that we've been tracking over the last couple of years. It's not, but I guess about 10 years ago or so, the trend was reversed. The aftermarket, maybe a little bit longer than that, but the aftermarket was winning out in terms of gaining more market share, both in terms of service occasions and in terms of the actual dollar spend. And that success, that hasn't been the story for the aftermarket for quite some time now. And it's been, it didn't kind of turn overnight. It's more been like a really slow erosion over the last decade or so. Probably accelerated as of about 2015. but to your point, we are at a point now where the split in terms of actual service occasions is more or less equal. It's pretty close to 50-50. So about half of all service occasions are happening in the aftermarket, and the other half are happening at dealerships. But I guess the more important story is that dealers are getting more of the more valuable work than they used to. And so when you break out the market by dollars, and it's about $9.2 billion was spent in automotive service between, again, these vehicles that are 4 to 12 years old. Dealers today capture about 60% of all of the dollars involved, which again, that used to be closer to 50-50. And at one point, the aftermarket actually had more of those dollars among this older vehicle set. And that's something that's changed quite a bit. And it's from what we see anyway, it's more focus being paid by dealers on their kind of the younger, so the owners of younger vehicles, doing a much better job of essentially providing them with less reason to leave. So whereas it used to be that, once the warranty had expired, more of those customers start to shop around and find different service options. Now we see, certainly in the vehicle set of, say, 4 to 7 year old vehicles, that's where dealers are really retaining a lot more of that business than they used to.
Okay, so that sort of that early part of the 4 to 12-year-old segment, they're really making inroads there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the natural next question is, what can the aftermarket service providers, or what are they doing well? What are they doing exceptionally well that they need to kind of understand they're doing well at this, and maybe they're seeing the benefits of that, and where can they improve, whether it's an independent aftermarket, a branded aftermarket, or just kind of frankly anybody in service? I mean, where's the gap in that can make some inroads here?
Yeah, so the two things, so there's when you look at the rank chart, there's always kind of like a choose your own adventure in terms of how different brands get to the top of the list, right? So right, number 1 and 2 are Audi dealerships and NAPA Autopro operations. So 2 very different businesses, right? So Audi gets there by having great facilities, a really high sense of, with their customers, of the overall quality of the service that was performed, so the work that the technicians are doing. And NAPA Autopro, on the other hand, gets to their ranking position by scoring really, really high in terms of service initiation. So how easy was it for me to get my car in for service, and the work that I do with my service advisor. So they have the highest service advisor scores, I believe, and the highest service initiation scores. So when it comes to and that's true largely across the like independents, and a lot of the aftermarket locations score pretty well in terms of initiation. It's easy to get my car in. Sometimes I don't even need an appointment. I just kind of show up and they can handle my service.
Right.
And for the most part, the service advisors do a great job in those operations. And I think that largely comes down to the fact that dealerships, or I should say, the independents have never had the benefit of sort of easy warranty loyalty, and so every sale they make, it is a retail sale, and so they're just good at handling the customers that walk in, and they're kind of rewarded for it in terms of the scoring there.
Right. I have a question from Mike Zackerly. He's asking if you have info on what the average door rate for the OEs is, and the average billable or billed hours per invoice, and how does that compare to the aftermarket? I haven't seen that data. I don't know if that's something that's tracked in your.
We don't. This particular study is just from the customer's perspective, and so asking the average Canadian what the door rate at their dealership, I don't think we'd get very reliable data on that. And yeah, so we don't have kind of that back end operational information directly from the business side.
Right, but we did have the average repair order numbers. I don't have them in front of me. Do you have to have them? I
don't have them in front of me, and to be and that's sort of self-reported by the customer.
Correct.
So it's I don't think anybody, when they're filling out our survey, is going back and grabbing their repair order receipt. Right. It's more I think the last time I was in for service, it was $300.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're both in about the $300. I think it was something like, actually, if I just refer to my own information here that we've reported on, uh, I think that they're both in the $300 range. There was
Yeah.
a somewhat significant move in the increase of both, about $20 per repair order for the aftermarket, and an increase of about $50 or $40 for the independent.
Yep.
And so there's an increasing gap there. But again, for Mike and everybody, just kind of referring back to what we had seen. That the cost per visit for the was $375 in 2020 versus $323 in 2019, which compares to the 241 in 2020 versus 2022. So there is quite a gap again, the 241 to 375 between aftermarket and dealers respectively. But again, that gap has been growing, which is a concern both for the shops and share of dollars, frankly, for the aftermarket. It's as you mentioned, it's been a trend that's been going on. So it sounds like the aftermarket channel does very well on that kind of face-to-face customer to customers. One of the notes made in the information was that the dealers did really well on returning vehicles clean, and
Yeah.
so talk a little bit about the impact that other aspects, whether it's cleaning vehicles or other kind of components of that customer experience, that can really pay some dividends.
Sure. Yeah. So there are two, I guess we could call them kind of halo activities that that we can track, and it's been true for quite some time. And to your point, washing the car after service has a huge impact on specifically how the customer feels about the quality of that repair. And it's not terribly intuitive, because obviously just because I hose down the car, and to be clear, we're not talking about detailing the vehicle, but just power washing the outside to make it look clean when the customer comes and picks it up. That doesn't have anything to do with the work you did on the car. But for the most part, when we're talking about a seasonal tire change and an oil change, certainly when it's just an oil change, when I get back in my car as the customer, I can't. I just know I paid you a couple $100, but I can't feel a difference. At the very least, if I get back to the shop or the dealership and my car is sitting there and it's obviously been cleaned, it provides a halo over the entire service occasion. And so when we take a look at scoring across the board, split by whether or not the car was washed, the scores are just higher in almost every rating question. And that I shouldn't feel any differently about how nice the waiting room was, just because my car was washed, but because I feel better about the whole thing, the scoring just kind of bumps up.
Right.
And the other activity that provides the same kind of bump is following up with your customers after the service occasion to make sure everything was okay. Anything else we can do for you? That just sort of nice to have touch point post service. Again, it shouldn't make me feel any differently about how the quality of the repair that was actually done, but when it comes to kind of reflecting on the service occasion, that's one of those kind of easy activities that really boosts the customer's overall sense of the occasion.
Sure. Now, you mentioned at the outset of our conversation about the impact that this has on the likelihood that a customer will return for service a second and third. Mm-hmm. If somebody's doing really well, somebody at the top of the ranking chart, or what's is there a loyalty percentage? Is there a rate?
Mhm.
And is there one that, again, a threshold that below, say, the average, it's, a significant difference? I mean, this kind of relates to another question we had, which is about, loyalty frequency between the OEs and the
Mhm.
independents. You know, uh, it's like if an independent sees a return frequency annually of 55% of their customer base, what's the OE today?
Mhm.
And all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, so the number that we use, and to be honest, it's kind of the consulting number we use more with our OE clients. To be honest, is the percentage of their customers that are um, pure service loyalists. So, what percentage of your customers only service their vehicle at your dealerships?
right.
And so, in the 4 to 7 year old vehicle category, a really good percentage there might be um, like 60% would be kind of on the higher end. So 4 to 7 year old vehicles, 60% of those customers only service with their whatever their brand dealership happens to be. And then we split the remaining 40% out by which percentage of your customers use both channels. So which kind of sometimes bring the car to your dealerships, but the second service each year is with an aftermarket location. And then that tends to be if a brand sits at say 60%, which kind of, I think the best kind of is in that zone. 20% are in that kind of cheater category. They're still married to you, but they cheat on you with other repair facilities. Um, and then there's the remaining 20% that have purely defected and only conduct their service business in the aftermarket. And our OE clients pay a lot of attention to that kind of middle category, um, because that category of customer that is spending some of their money elsewhere. For a big brand like a Toyota or a General Motors, they have so many vehicles on the road that they only need to move that percentage by a little bit for that to mean $100 million for their dealer network and their parts business. So it's why I think we haven't seen kind of a massive shift year over year in that service retention number or the dollars split between the aftermarket and the OE dealerships, but it's been a kind of a slow grinding erosion as OEs try and kind of capture 1% of loyalty at a time.
Right, right, right. Now, the same kind of taking the flip side of it, those uh, non-dedicated customer base that splits their expenditures between the dealer and the aftermarket. Those are an opportunity for the aftermarket. In the same way, those are seen to be the opportunity for the for the dealers. Is there any sense? Just this might not be part of the reason. Is there any sense of the split and which services, I can kind of make some assumptions, but I'll just ask you which services that kind of split customer, split loyalty customer is going to the
Mhm.
dealer for that the aftermarket could maybe look to address, promote, or make the customer more aware of to gain some of that commerce.
Yeah, so the first point of contact for the most part, when we look at why do customers leave their dealership and move to the aftermarket, it tends to be initially for the faster convenience based service occasions, and so that first point of contact tends to be, I need my tires changed now, and my dealer says I have to wait for 2 weeks. So, and while I'm there, I'll get the oil change that has been put off. So it tends to be, like I said, yeah, those fast, convenience-based occasions that are the first draw. And so I don't see any reason that shouldn't continue or won't continue to be the case. So
Right.
that the more aftermarket locations can promote specifically their ability to get customers in and out quickly, get an appointment on whatever day you want when you want it, and then from there build the relationship that's based on a great first service occasion to educate that customer about all the other things that you can do.
Right, right. Yeah, it sort of goes into the realm of, a bit of broad speculation. But if the car dealers are getting more of the high dollar, high value repairs, there sort of begs the question, what are the aftermarket players doing or not doing to instill in their customer base confidence that they can accommodate and execute those repair categories, whether it's
Yeah.
technology or electronics or whatever the high value repairs are.
Yeah, and I might, I mean, again, kind of speculation, and I might, I might be wrong on this, but I do get the sense that on the aftermarket side, there, I see that customer wants for the tire change and oil change, but like I might not be doing as much as the dealers are in terms of kind of constant communication with that customer, and now treating them as my customer as opposed to just then grabbing the next person that walks in and dealing with that repair. So I think certainly a concerted effort to continue to communicate with your customers and let them know that your shop, regardless of whether it's independent or a branded aftermarket location, is a full service option for those customers.
Right, right, and certainly, there are ample opportunities to use many of the tools that shops already have in place with their
Hmm.
CRM systems that might be part
Yeah.
of systems to reach out to customers more frequently, more effectively, substantive information about the work they can do, and it's certainly, I know in my inbox, I continue at offers information, approaches from a variety of both national brand, say Quick Lubes,
Hmm.
or car dealers that haven't had a relationship with maybe for some time,
Yeah.
and continue to get reminders and information from them. And that's certainly not something that I've seen in my own personal experience from much of the independent aftermarket facilities that I've had occasion to spend my money with over the years. I don't think they treat me any better or any worse than any other customer in that respect, but it's certainly an opportunity, uh,
Hmm.
to reach out more often. I'm sure that that's something a lot of folks at the independent aftermarket service sector will agree.
Yeah, and I think our current, I don't know what we're calling our current mid-pandemic scenario happens to be. I hope we're working to the tail end, but you know, who knows? Um, if we do, and it's looking, kind of likely that we might head back into some kind of a more kind of lockdown state at some point. Certainly use that opportunity to communicate proactively with your customers. And we saw some dealers, some aftermarket locations make really solid inroads by over communicating their kind of health and safety plan with customers. And we heard it on the flip side that some customers put off servicing their vehicle because they didn't know what the process was. They kind of had a sense that dealers or aftermarket locations had something in place to keep everybody safe, but they didn't know what that looked like. So when you have a process in place to handle customers that come in, make sure you proactively reach out to everybody and say, so here's how this, times have changed. Thanks for your business, but here's how it's going to work when you show up at our place. And walk people through each step. Our advisor will greet you with our no contact touchless transfer of your keys. When you come back, all of the high touch point areas in your vehicle will be sanitized and clean and ready for you to drive off. So just step by step, walk your customers through exactly what's going to happen and what they can expect.
Right, right. And to do that more than once, I would take, it's not just at the beginning of things in March or April or May that,
Yeah.
I mean, as we head into the fall service season, a lot of shops will be preparing for winter tire changeovers.
Yeah.
And it would make sense to once again go back into that toolkit and re-communicate if there's been adjustments to your service and intake procedures, and amend your information. But reach out and make sure your customers are reminded how easy it is, how straightforward it is, how much you're taking care to ensure that everything is safe and sanitized, and all in keeping with whatever your local edicts are as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it always it's tough to to say use a global health crisis to your advantage, but it does give you the opportunity to proactively reach out and communicate with your customers, and I would take full advantage of that.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I think we're just going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much, JD. I appreciate taking the time on what is a Friday morning, the first Friday of the fall. And I'm here in lovely uptown Sudbury, Ontario, and the fall colors are in full bloom. Here's hoping that it's a good omen for good fall service for everybody as we head into, as mentioned, the kind of winter tire changeover season, which is coming too soon for some of us. I think there's a couple of good points here. Reaching out to customers is never a bad thing. Use those tools that you've got to do it again, even if you feel you've talked their ear off through emails or e-blasts or on the phone. Customers can always be reminded that you have their best interests in mind. There's a bottom line benefit for the service business in doing things well and keeping customers happy. But it also keeping your fellow community members well and happy is a good thing in and of itself too. So, well, here's hoping everybody has a great weekend and is looking forward to a good fall service business season. And everybody, hope you keep safe and well. And thank you, JD. Same to you.
My pleasure. Anytime, Andrew. Thanks, guys.
Take care.